Cuban news.
So last week, Assata Shakur, who is, well, I'll say well-known enough. I mean,
her
many
lineage
people.
Certainly is.
Sure, but I would argue probably not as prevalent as someone like Fred Hampton.
Sure.
But she was a Black Panther.
Worked with them, right?
For a minute. Yep.
That's what I remember.
So
I remember her
away.
talking about Fred Hampton a lot. That's what I remember seeing her with.
Right. But she passed away in Cuba, where she was exiled last week. So we wanted to give our due diligence in remembrance of her and her legacy. And I think, as I said earlier, especially right now, especially in the conversations that at least Reef and I have been having with you all, and I'm sure hopefully you guys are having these conversations in your communities and in your homes, just the idea of what we need to do as far as what does organization really mean and how we're able to turn away from the federal government or even the state government or local governments in terms of really supplying the things that the regular schmegular people need on the day-to-day. And by proxy, dismantling the systems that are preventing us from truly living out the liberation that this country claims to aspire to, but falls flat on its face every single time. So I want to play, I should have told you this earlier, but I think you figured it out. So I want to play this clip. It's long, it's about 10 minutes. It gives a little background, just a quick 10-minute synopsis of Assata and a little bit of her legacy and the issues that surrounding her, why she's considered a terrorist or was on the terrorist list. So this is from Hype Plus. Shout out to them for this. So let's play. You might want to speed it up a little bit.
I did a bit.
For Hype Plus News, I'm Symphony Thompson. We know the names and faces of many Black revolutionaries like Fred Hampton and Malcolm X, but how much of their stories do we really know? We learn about the nation's most notable Black leaders in school and in the media, but even the things you can learn can be misconstrued depending on the source. A perfect example of this is many false details about Martin Luther King Jr. portrayed in the media by way of the FBI. Another radical leader who shares the experience of having their narrative be told by the government is activist and author Assata Shakur. Some may know her as a member of the Black Liberation Army. Some may recognize the name as the late rapper Tupac Shakur's godmother. But if you were to look up Assata Shakur on the internet, you might find that she's a bank robber, a kidnapper, and a murderer. According to Shakur through interviews in her autobiography, Assata, that is not at all her story. It is true that she has been a political activist since the 1960s, has worked alongside many famous revolutionaries like Huey P. Newton and Angela Davis. The meaning of her chosen name, Assata Alukbala, reflects her life and legacy. She who struggles for the people. Her life has been dedicated to the collective struggle for Black liberation. So how did Assata go from activist to FBI's most wanted? This is what you didn't know about Assata Shakur. There is no evidence of the birth of Assata Shakur, at least none that can be confirmed by the FBI. The wanted poster released by the Federal Bureau of Investigation lists Shakur's birthday as July 16, 1947, but in parentheses it states, not substantiated by birth records. The FBI also notes that Shakur used August 19, 1952 as her birthday. However, she was born as Joanne Deborah Bryan, what she calls her slave name, in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where she grew up moving back and forth between her mom, aunt, and grandparents in Wilmington, North Carolina. Growing up in the Jim Crow era, Shakur's grandparents Lola and Frank Hill, who owned a local dance hall, instilled in her a sense of dignity, especially regards to white people. They would tell her things like, "You're as good as anyone else. Don't let anyone tell you that they're better than you." And when it came to white people, she was forbidden from calling them ma'am or sir, looking down while speaking to them, or any other subservient gestures. In her autobiography, she writes, "I was told to hold my head up high or risk having my grandparents knock it off my shoulders." Although Shakur experienced racism earlier in life, she wouldn't begin to radicalize into her late teen years. At 17 years old, Shakur dropped out of school and moved out on her own. She lived with strangers for a while until her aunt Evelyn, who later became her lawyer, took her in and helped her get her GED. She would go on to attend Bureau of Manhattan Community College and later City College of New York. She made friends with many of the African students on campus. Then one day in 1964, a discussion on the roots of the Vietnam War changed her life. I never forgot that day. We're taught at such an early age to be against communists, yet most of us don't have the faintest idea what communism is. Only a fool lets somebody else tell him who his enemy is. She became active in different organizations like the Garveyites in the Republic of New Africa, and in the late 1960s, Assata would join one of the most prominent political organizations, the Black Panther Party. Though brief, her time with the Black Panthers would mark a life-changing turn of events in her political career. She had always revered the message of the Black Panther Party, especially because they made it really clear who the enemy was. Not the white people, but the capitalistic, imperialistic oppressors. Shakur has said that the party not being open to criticism led to her exit from the organization. In her autobiography, she writes, "Constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their own mistakes, not learning from them. Government infiltration, namely COINTELPRO."
I think that's important, especially in media, because I think people generally feel a way if you criticize them, and I think you and I have experienced that even among our colleagues.
And we're not the only ones.
Right. So look, the reality is we get criticized all the time. Like, I get criticized every freaking day, you know,
usually by ourselves too. I'll add that.
Right. No,
we're our biggest critics.
I am. Yeah, for sure. Like, I am my own worst critic. And you know this because I hammer myself all the time to you. So, but I think it's important. Like, it's one thing to criticize for the sake of criticism, like just to be a dick. That's one thing. But like, if it's the idea of like, look, I may disagree with you in how you're doing things, let's figure out a better way. That's a totally different thing, especially given if you want to see that person or people succeed.
Right.
So I think, but I think also just within the space now, there's just, and I can't even say really for sure, but it just feels like we're kind of not distrusting, but like we're kind of separating from each other just due to different issues. And which is sad, because I feel like the very things that we talk about, I think in terms of, our audience, in terms of, we need to know how to be better at doing things. We need to also kind of apply that, I think, among each other as political commentators in the space. So it doesn't happen always in that way. But I think it is important that, as Assata said, constructive criticism in order, if we're looking for liberation,
necessary.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Pro, among other factors, led to the demise of the Black Panther Party, but not before its most prominent members had turned against each other, been killed, falsely imprisoned, or demonetized in the media. These events gave way to the Black Liberation Army, a group that the FBI named Shakur the heart of. BLA members operated under the belief that only through covert means, including but not limited to violent acts, could the movement be continued. This underground Black Party spinoff built its tactics around revolutionary violence with the goal to take up arms for the liberation of Black people in the United States. Acting as her own co-counsel in a 1976 trial for murder, Assata claimed in her opening statement, "The Black Liberation Army is not an organization. It goes beyond that. It is a concept, a people's movement, an idea. The idea of a Black Liberation Army emerged from conditions in Black communities. Conditions of poverty, indecent housing, massive unemployment, poor medical care, and inferior education," she continued. The concept of the BLA arose because of its political, social, and economic oppression of Black people in this country. And where there is oppression, there will be resistance. From 1971 to 1973, Shakur was alleged to have committed a series of heinous crimes: 2 bank robberies in New York, the kidnap of a drug dealer, armed robbery, and the attempted murder of a policeman in an ambush. In 1972, the FBI issued a warrant for her arrest in connection with these crimes allegedly committed by the BLA. It was clear that the Black Liberation Army was a target for the FBI, local police agencies, and they were being pinned with every violent crime in the area. Assata would later either be acquitted for every charge or the case was dismissed. Then came the events of May 2nd, 1973, the fatal Jersey Turnpike shootout. There are different accounts of what happened that night, but what we do know is that Assata and her political associates, Zaid Malik Shakur and Sindada Okoli, were stopped by State Trooper James Harper, backed up by Trooper Weiner Forster for driving with a broken tail light. Shots were fired and Zaid Shakur and Weiner Forster were killed. After fleeing the scene, Assata, wounded with 2 gunshots to the arm and the back, surrendered to the police, and Okoli was captured after a 36-hour manhunt. Only the survivors know what really happened that night, and Assata refuses to share details even to this day. But in 1977, upon being found guilty, Assata maintains that the jury convicted a woman with her hands up. The trial was considered by many to be a miscarriage miscarriage of justice, beginning with the jury selection. Transcripts show that at least 2 of the juries expressed prejudice before the start of the trial. 5 out of the 15 jurors selected, all white, were close friends or relatives to New Jersey state troopers. A major key in Assata's defense was medical testimony proving that during the confrontation, she was shot with her hands up, sustaining paralyzing wounds that would make her unable to fire a weapon in the manner that Trooper Harper had testified. Harper's testimony conflicted throughout the trial, and he testified to lying in his official report on the incident, as well as in his grand jury testimony. And though there were no forensic evidence proving that Assata ever touched a gun that night, the jury found her guilty on all 8 counts. She was sentenced to life plus 30 years. Shakur spent years in jail before her conviction under conditions that most would consider to be deplorable. In her autobiography, she tells of being embarrassed and even tortured by police in the hospital after the incident. She was chained to her hospital bed and interrogated while gravely injured. She was even held in an all-male prison in solitary confinement for over 20 months in under 24-hour surveillance. She was beaten and given less than adequate medical care, even when she became pregnant with her only daughter, Kakuya. When the prison first found out she was pregnant, a doctor not only lied about her diagnosis multiple times, but he also refused to provide Shakur with any support besides an abortion. So in 1979, Assata Shakur had decided that it was time to go. On November 2nd, she escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women. It is said that a group of members of the Black Liberation Army helped Shakur escape by posing as visitors to the prison. Holding 2 correctional officers hostage at gunpoint, they stole a prison van to get off the facility grounds, leaving the hostages in the parking lot before switching cars and fleeing the scene. Shakur refuses to go into detail about her escape in solitary with those incarcerated due to their involvement. After breaking out of prison, Assata went on the run and remained underground for 5 years until fleeing to Cuba and receiving political asylum in 1984. To this day, Shakur remains in Cuba with the FBI classifying her as a domestic terrorist since May 2nd, 2005. In 2013, on the 40th anniversary of Trooper Forster's death, Shakur became the first woman added to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. They placed a $2 million bounty on the activist. In 1998, Shakur told Source magazine, "The US government tried to eliminate me, but I'm not a criminal like they want you to believe, or a gangster. The FBI has a way of leaking all kinds of stories about me to the press, the same way they've always tried to criminalize the Black liberation movement. Because of this, we as a people have to be really clear about who we are and what we stand for." Even today, we see the media misconstrue the facts in many cases of social injustice, but with the emergence of social media, we're able to see the truth play out in real time. Robert Doyle, a lawyer connected to the BLA, is quoted in the book Days of Rage as saying, "Assata was never this massively important figure the police portrayed her as. She was important, but the police made up this mythic image of a super Black woman with an afro and a machine gun. She was never that." When asked if she would ever return to the United States, Assata told Essence magazine in 1997, "I don't know. I think it will be hard. It's funny. People ask me if I miss the States. I miss African Americans. I miss our culture, our speech, dance, and cooking, but not the US government and all the things that they put me through. I miss my friends and family. When I ask how things are in the States, they don't give me the okie dokie. They say, 'Honey, things are hard.' It reminds me I have to keep struggling." And at the age of 75 years old, Assata Shakur remains in Cuba. Stay up to date with the latest news by subscribing here to our YouTube channel. Follow Hype Plus across all social media.
Well, interesting story. I haven't heard all of that. So
yeah, but with the FBI involved,
yeah,
it's not surprising that some of her legacy will be misconstrued. And even I didn't put it up, but even like Kash Patel, when he died, put up a tweet basically being like, she's a terrorist. Like,
right.
There's no way people shouldn't celebrate her, basically.
Meanwhile, they're fucking letting Jolani have fucking biscuits and gravy and shit in New York. Like, what are we, you know what I mean? Like, also labeled as a terrorist. So, what, what's the deal? Huh? What's up with that? Huh? You don't know. So they ain't got answers.
This is a Substack article that I found I didn't want to use mainstream media because I'm sure they'll misconstrue it. Yeah. But this is from Wanda Wise Mama, she basically, I would argue, a eulogy in memory of her. So she writes, celebrating her principles and enduring legacy. So I think that's most important, just given, just kind of give perspective of, in the 10 minutes that we watched that clip, of just what she was trying to do and how, she was trying to, liberate our community in particular. So Wanda Wise Mama writes, Assata Shakur's life story stands as a powerful narrative of revolutionary commitment, resilience, and an unwavering pursuit of justice and liberation. Born Joanne Deborah Brighton in 1947, Shakur embraced a transformative political identity as she became a prominent activist within the Black Panther Party and later the Black Liberation Army, dedicating her life to dismantling systemic racism, capitalism, and imperialism. This essay honors her principles, drawing on interdisciplinary scholarship and Shakur's own reflections, while applying a critical lens inspired by educational theory and narrative analysis. For me, this is not just an academic exercise. It is personal. Whenever I've been asked the icebreaker question, if you could have lunch with anyone, living or dead, who would it be? My answer has always depended on the framing. If the choice was someone no longer alive, my answer was immediate: my grandmother, who is my anchor and the woman who helped me shape my foundation. But when the question was about someone living, I always answered in two names that carried immense weight for me as a Black woman in America: Assata Shakur and Dr. Angela Davis.
Who's got her own problems.
Well,
we find out later, you know?
Right.
But some of y'all still ain't found out. But you'll catch up. It'll be okay.
These women represented resilience, brilliance, and unapologetic strength in the face of relentless oppression. Growing up, it was difficult to find representations of Black women who were seen not just as survivors, but as leaders, revolutionaries, and thinkers shaping the future. Assata Shakur and Angela Davis were two women who broke through those barriers. They embodied the possibility of living life on one's own terms, rooted in justice and community, despite the harshest of circumstances. They modeled what it meant to remain unbent in a world that constantly tries to break us. And I thought, though I never met Assata Shakur, the news of her death touched me deeply. Her passing felt like the loss of a relative I had never seen face to face, but whose presence lived inside me through her words, her legacy, and our unwavering principles. She reminded me of the women in my family who carry strength in their homes, women who refuse to let systems erase them. Assata's life gave me a mirror, showing me that our pain could be transformed into resilience and that our survival could itself be a form of revolution. Central to Shakur's worldview was the principle of collective liberation, which rejects individualistic advancement in favor of a communal struggle against oppressive systems. Her advocacy underscored the true freedom that can only be attained by overthrowing capitalist and imperialist structures that perpetuate racial inequities. This framing aligns with Shakur's assertion that the revolutionary struggle of Black people must challenge racism, sexism, capitalism, and imperialism simultaneously to achieve authentic freedom under a socialist government. She underscored the need to sharply and clearly define the enemy, not as white people per se, but as capitalist and imperialist oppressors. That distinction mattered deeply. It taught me, as a young Black woman trying to make sense of this country, that liberation is not about revenge or division, but about clarity, about naming systems for what they are, holding them accountable, and dismantling them so we can live in a world that honors all people. Her systemic critique broadened the Black liberation movement into a global context, merging political theory with intercessory practice. It helped me understand that our struggles were not isolated to our neighborhoods or even our nation. They were part of a much larger pattern of exploitation and resistance across the globe. Shakur's activism reflected more than rhetoric. It was a lived, embodied commitment manifested through community programs such as free breakfast for children and health clinics initiated during her tenure in Black Panther and Black Liberation Army chapters. These grassroots efforts exemplified her principle that liberation involves tangible, supportive action that nurtures solidarity and empowerment. For me, this hit home because I was raised to believe that love was best shown in action. My grandmother taught me that if you saw someone hungry, you fed them. If you saw someone without, you shared what you had. Seeing that Assata's politics were rooted in the same values of radical love and care affirmed what I always known in my bones. Her principles resonated with insights from contemporary educational theories that foreground engagement, motivation, and community empowerment as cornerstones of transformative learning experiences. In other words, she was not only a revolutionary fighter, but also an educator. She taught through action, through care, through the example of building structures that could outlast oppression. Despite her contributions, Assata Shakur faced grave legal challenges marked by alleged political motivated charges, including accusations of firing the fatal shot in a police confrontation. Throughout her trial and incarceration, she consistently maintained her innocence, asserting that she did not fire the weapon and that she was wounded while her hands were raised in surrender. Her refusal to deprave her truth, even under the harshest of conditions, embodied a moral clarity and resilience that I've always admired. These qualities are what so many of us, particularly Black women, have had to cultivate in order to survive in spaces that question our worth, our intelligence, and even our humanity. Shakur's life affirmed the resilience that it's not just about endurance, but about integrity, about refusing to let oppression dictate your narrative. The principles of self-awareness, integrity, and resilience cultivated in medical and educational training mirror the qualities embodied by Shakur throughout decades of adversity. Her life showed me that resilience was not about smiling through pain, but about standing on principle even when the cost was high. Exile in Cuba did not silence Shakur's voice. Instead, it became a platform for continued activism through writing, teaching, and storytelling. Her autobiography and public discourse serve as powerful narrative tools that offer a bridge between personal experience and collective consciousness, reflecting the educational assertion that storytelling fosters meaning, connection, and critical reflection. The dialogical narrative of her autobiography disrupts singular life story approaches, situating her experiences within the wider histories of Black oppression and resistance, thus supporting an emancipatory political pedagogy. This is why Assata's story mattered so much to me personally. She reminded me that telling our stories is not indulgent, it is necessary. To write, to speak, to document is to resist erasure. In her words, I found both courage and validation, and it deepened my own commitment to telling my story and passing it forward. From Assata Shakur's principles emerged several enduring lessons, relevant across disciplines and struggles. The importance of resilience in confronting systemic injustice, akin to cultivating emotional resilience in professional educational settings. The power of collective action and radical love as a transformative force, reflecting collaboration and learner-centered pedagogies. The critical role of truthful storytelling in empowering marginalized voices and sustaining movements. The value of lifelong commitment to education and social justice as an extension of personal activism. For me, these lessons were not abstract. They became guideposts. They shape how I see myself as a mother, as a teacher, and as a woman navigating a world that still seeks to diminish me. In considering these lessons, one recognizes Assata Shakur as a beacon of principled resilience and education. Her life exemplifies how steadfast adherence to justice, collective collaboration, and insightful teaching can inspire profound societal transformation. In conclusion, Assata Shakur's legacy transcends controversy and legal persecution, embodying a lifelong pursuit of freedom grounded in uncompromising principles. Her life's work exemplifies how revolutionary ideas, when combined with lived experience and communal education, can empower generations to envision and enact a just world. For me, she was more than a revolutionary figure in history. She was one of the women who helped me imagine what it meant to be strong, to be unafraid, and to be rooted in principles that no system could take away. Her passing leaves a void, but her lessons remain. I may have never met her, but through her words, her example, and her resilience, she shaped me. And for that, I will always be grateful. So I have one short video.
Okay.
I want to play. I think it's about 30 seconds. Just to hear her voice. But I think a lot of you will agree with what she says here. So you can go ahead.
So I think that we have got to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves to fight a repressive system, an oppressive system, and a system that smashes the human being to the point where people don't even remember how to take a walk, how to say good morning, how to smile at each other. We have to take this planet back from the beasts that are controlling it right now.
I mean, sounds like she was ready for some shit.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think again, she said what I've been saying for the last few weeks. You know, like it's one thing we need to be prepared, and not just ideological groupthink and talk in theory and all of that, which I think we are prone to do in this space probably too much, but rather take action. But also action meaning having to learn to defend yourself in case things pop off. And so,
well, and how to deal with things legally, and how to do like all that stuff is part of it. Like, you know, so like she clearly had her options, and be ready to have some friends back you up and put you in a van. You know,
right.
like,
well, I
like
think
you got to have some fucking connections.
Right. But I think what in her life, I think that's what we need to aspire to. It's, again, the idea of the collective, in especially like the reality is, especially like if you're in trouble like that, you're going to need people who are lawyers. You're going to need people, who are cops, who know the law. Like you're going to need people who are in the medical field, that if something happens to you, that they're able to possibly assist you or connect you to the right people. You're going to need money. So you're going to need people who have the financial backing possibly, but also the financial know-it-all to raise funds in order to fund certain programs that you need to do. So I think the problem is, I think especially in this space, we're so siloed in kind of thinking individually and just kind of doing things here and there, where we need to think more collectively in terms of, and I've talked about gifts before, but like everybody has something to offer in terms of revolution. It may not necessarily be what we're doing, but you have a skill or you are in a profession that is useful. And collectively, if we're able, especially on the left, if we're able to kind of bring that together, then we would be a powerful force. But I think the problem is we often kind of look to influencers, or even, and like I'm saying this because we're a part of it in a sense, but like at the same time, I want to challenge people to not just look at us or other shows and just kind of take everything in that they're saying. Do something with that. Like try and connect with people who are able to kind of build upon the work that we want to see happen. And we're not having those conversations. So unless we do that, then I think it's just going to be more of what we kind of seeing right now in this space. It's just a lot of talking and maybe a lot of theoreticals, but nothing where we're actually collectively making moves so that, you know, the fact that the FBI was intimidated by this one Black woman says a lot. And I think that was more with who she was attached to, if anything else. So they're not afraid of us because
when you look at Angela Davis on the other side of this, they manipulated her in a completely different way, right? Like, you know, and that's what I try to like. Dude, they throw everything at you. The honey, the stick. They don't care. Like, as long as you bend the knee, like, they don't care. So, I mean, we've seen that with countless other activists, and
well,
if neither of those work,
don't,
right,
unless they don't, like Assata did, like,
shit
and
happens.
it was very simple, right? Like, you know, she was not willing to give up on her principles at all. And it's funny because she was no snitch either. She was not going to rat out anybody who is surrounding her either. Because in my mind, she was thinking it's more important for the movement to continue. I'd rather lose my life than to allow myself to give up anybody and have the feds kind of take over the movement that was growing at the time. So in a lot of ways, as a woman, which I can appreciate in that regard, she was protecting her own. So I think of that as very redeeming of her and very revolutionary of her, as she kind of compared to Angela Davis and like many others, especially Black people.
Yeah.
You know, they sell out. Or like with the idea, we'll give you this if you don't become a part, like become one of us, become a part of the academic elite, or like the media space where you get all the money and you get all the fame. You just have to
tell us the location of Fred Hampton or
right,
you know, any of those things so that we can shoot them through the wall of a hotel, like that kind of shit. So
right.
Yep.
But yeah, I think so yeah, she, as we said, she has an autobiography. I believe JB has read her book on his stream. So if you want to check out her book, if you want it to be read by JB's vocal cords, you could definitely go check him out. Otherwise, I would probably recommend getting the book yourself and reading it through. But yeah, as I said, we wanted to give due diligence to, in her way, powerful woman who has meant a lot within the Black community. And I wish, and I hate being such a Debbie Downer on this, but I feel like her life, though meaningful, is not going to mean much right now because we're so disconnected.
Yeah.
That we're barely able to gather among ourselves as within the Black community, much less try to gather allies within, especially on the left, to try and shake up the establishment at all. But
as Carlin once said, all your flowers arrive at once, too late. Like, that's pretty much how it goes. So, yeah.
All your flowers arrive at once, too late.
But, yep, interesting stuff. So, appreciate it, dog.
Thank you. But talking about people like Assata and sharing segments like these is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us so we're able to continue making this show as well as other shows on INN, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat right now and you are live, you can type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up in the chat, and you can click on it and you can give anything as low as $1 will help. Like I said, we're trying to raise money for Angel's computer, so he needs about $100 more in order for him to secure it. So let's see what we can do tonight or after if you're watching as a segment. So links to that, links to our Ko-fi as well as Substack, PayPal, and Cash App if you want to give are in the description below. And of course, we don't expect everyone to give. We do appreciate anyone who's able to, but the most important way and the free way to support us is liking and subscribing to our channel. Please check, because YouTube has a tendency to boot off people who are subscribed to us. So double check and make sure. And make sure you leave a comment. Apparently that helps the algorithm, allegedly, with that engagement. So let us know. Have you known about Assata prior to her death? Is it someone that you're interested in knowing more about? Are you familiar with her and her legacy at all? So we definitely, and has this inspired you in what we kind of share tonight of what you can do in terms of within your community, how you can enact some type of change, even if it's small, to help your neighbors. Help us get to 3K. We're hoping to get there by the end of the year. We're pretty much almost there. And thanks for watching.